Okay. Selenium 3 implementation is like that. So WebDriver is an interface. That interface inside you have so many methods like get method, get title method, all the getter methods are there. And again, so set context interface has a find element and find elements methods. So now see, this interface extends to set context. That means WebDriver super interface is, what is the super interface of WebDriver? Set context. This is a parent. So what is the parent interface of WebDriver is? This is an interview question also. So the parent interface of WebDriver is, what is that? Set context is the interface. Now when you extend WebDriver extends to set context, the parent of WebDriver interface. Now all the set context methods you have to implement where a WebDriver is implemented. So now this implementation, this WebDriver methods implemented in the remote WebDriver class. Remote WebDriver is a class. So it implements the WebDriver interfaces and set context methods also. Both are implemented in this remote WebDriver class. Now, this remote WebDriver class is extending to each browser class. See, this is the one. Extends Internet Explorer, extends Firefox driver, extends Chrome driver, extends Edge driver, extends Safari driver, extends Opera driver. These are all class names. Class names directly extending to remote WebDriver. That's the Selenium 3. See, Selenium 4, what are the changes happened? Closely observe that. WebDriver extends to set context. That's a same change in the Selenium 3 also. Now, WebDriver is implemented in the remote WebDriver class, but remote WebDriver is the parent to Chromium driver. Chrome driver is again extends to Edge driver and Chrome driver. See, Chrome driver is the child class and Chromium driver is the parent. So this Chrome driver extends Chromium driver class. Edge driver extends Chromium driver class. And again, Chromium driver is the child of remote WebDriver class. This change was not there in the Selenium 3. So these are directly extending to remote WebDriver. Now that is changed in the Selenium 4. Now Firefox driver directly extends to remote WebDriver. That means the parent of Firefox driver is the remote WebDriver. Safari driver is the child of remote WebDriver. And Internet Explorer driver is the child of remote WebDriver. So main WebDriver is implemented in the remote WebDriver class. Remote WebDriver class, the implementation happened. But again, this remote WebDriver is again extended to Chromium driver. Chromium driver is the parent class for these two classes, Edge driver and Chromium driver. So let me show you that hierarchy here. You can see remote WebDriver child is Chromium driver. Chromium driver child classes are Chrome driver and Edge driver, all following the naming conventions of a classes. So this is the class names. What is the class name for Chrome browser? Chrome driver. What is the class name for Edge browser? Edge driver. What is these two classes of parent class? Chromium driver. Chromium class parent class is remote WebDriver. This is the new change happened. See, this is the one. Public class Chrome driver extends Chromium driver. So public class Edge driver extends Chromium driver. That means Chrome driver and Edge driver is extending to Chromium driver. So this is the change happened in the Selenium 4. See, Chromium driver extends to remote WebDriver. So this is the changes how it happened in Selenium 4. Clear? See, this is the interface. Where this interface available? org.openqr.selenium package. The root package of Selenium is org.openqr.selenium package. all these classes and these interfaces available in this package. So if you want to use this package classes in our package, so what is the first thing you have to do? What is the first thing you have to do?
First we import the package.
Excellent. That's the concept. Import this package and this interface, these classes, then you can use in our package classes. That's the first point you have to do. If you're directly writing, it doesn't allow you, it will throw error. So, and as I told you, so can I create like this? Driver equal to new WebDriver. Is it possible?
No, sir, because it is interface.
Super. See, Venkatesh has grabbed all the concepts. So for any interface, you should not create object. This is wrong. This is a wrong. Why we cannot create object for any interface? So I have given reason here. Interface contains all abstract methods. Those methods are not implemented. That means no definition in the any interface. So without a definition, we cannot use them. That is the reason you cannot create object for any interface. It doesn't matter. It is a WebDriver or set context. It doesn't matter. For any interface, you should not use object creation concept. You can point to that, but you cannot use that. So that's the first point you need to understand. So when we first you start with the Selenium automation and our so code, you have to write like this. So where you have used runtime polymorphism or method overriding concept in your automation. So this is the one. WebDriver, driver equal to new Firefox driver. So what is happening here? Can anyone tell here? This is you are creating the object object you are creating for the class that is implementing the WebDriver interface methods here. So that means this is the parent type. That reference variable is pointing to the field class object where the implementation happened. Now all Firefox browser related logic and it will call. If you create object for Chrome driver class logic will call here. So with this object reference, you can call all the methods of that browser specific logic you will get. That I have shown you in the interface very, very nicely. So same thing is applicable here. Which class, which browser you want to run your test case, you have to create for that browser class. So I have given here very clearly what is the class name for each browser. I heard this table. So for Firefox browser, the class name is Firefox driver. You should follow the naming conventions of a class names. These are two words. So F capital, D capital, no spaces. That's a class name for Firefox browser. Chrome driver, the class name for Google Chrome browser. Safari driver is the class name for Safari browser. Opera driver is the class name for Opera browser. Internet Explorer driver is the class name for IE browser. Now this is not there in Selenium 4. Selenium 4, the HTML unit driver is removed. So because you can run, this is the silent mode you can run without opening the browser. You can run in Selenium 3, but they provided that feature in with the so directly the Firefox driver and Chrome driver. You can do that. So without opening the browser, silent mode, you can run that. So that is the feature, extra feature they added in Selenium 4. So event firing WebDriver, remote WebDriver class, you know already, Edge driver. So Edge browser, Edge driver is there. So all these concepts are interview related. Please focus on that. So this is the one several times asked to test your Java skills. If you say correct, that's wrong. Because WebDriver is an interface, I'm saying very clearly here. And you should not create object for WebDriver, for interface. If you create object, that's wrong. That means you don't have a Java concept. If you say yes, you can create object. That means you don't have a Java concept. Java interface concept, you are not clear. That is the reason. So you are telling yes, you should not say this is a correct one, this is a wrong. Any interface, you should not create object. You can create object for a class, any class. This class you can create object, but not for interface. Okay, so that's the interface concept. And here runtime polymorphism is following, because all WebDriver methods are overriding in this class. All these classes you are overriding, and this is the runtime polymorphism concept. So because parent class reference variable pointing to child class object, that's why this line is following the runtime polymorphism concept. If anybody asks you, can give the answer. The example for runtime polymorphism in the Selenium is WebDriver driver equal to new Firefox driver. This is the runtime polymorphism concept. So can you explain? They will ask, what is WebDriver driver? What is mean by this? WebDriver driver, what is mean by this? So WebDriver is an interface, and we are defining a reference variable driver. So we are defining a reference variable driver. So whose type is an interface? What is the driver type? This driver type is interface. So what is the driver variable type? WebDriver interface. WebDriver interface is a what type of primitive? What type of data type? Primitive or non-primitive?
Non-primitive.
Non-primitive. See, data type, variable name equal to the address of the object I am storing in the driver variable. Now this object address is Firefox object address stores here. If you create object for a new Chrome driver, Chrome object address will store there. That means all Chrome browser related things will call here. So that's the main concept you need to understand here. So WebDriver is an interface, and we are defining a reference variable whose type is an interface. Now any object we assign to it, must be an instance of a class. Must be an instance of a class, but not an interface. Okay, must be an instance of a class. It can be Firefox driver, Chrome driver, Safari driver, Opera driver, Edge driver, any driver class you can use here, but not interface here. So that implements the interface. Which class implements the interface? For that class, you can create object here. Okay, so this is the concept. First line we are going to write in the automation. That next classes I will tell you. So before just move on to this Selenium architecture quickly. Okay, time is over. Okay, so next class I will discuss this.